Thank you. What a great introduction. I must rewrite that. So horrible. Are we good? Can you hear me? Great. So it's really nice to be back at Taylor's. I've been here a couple of times, not to this particular campus. This is really beautiful. I don't know where to look at. You're kind of all around me. I'm not used to this. Okay, let's just get straight into it. But before I do it, just some housekeeping. I presume there are no children here? Are we all adults?
Yeah.
Okay, I just say that because occasionally if I get carried away, I will use adult language. I will try not to, but I apologize in advance for when I do. Is there a hashtag for an event? You have a hashtag? Okay, right. What is it? iLEAD? All right, okay. That's a hashtag. Okay. That's a lot of characters. Anyway, that's me on Counterpoint. Albert, you need to keep up. On Twitter. Okay, so, and I'm Counterpointer on Twitter and Instagram. Right, more about that later. So one of the things that I like doing is listening to commencement speeches on YouTube. So that's Steve Jobs speaking at Stanford. Have you all listened to this? Has anybody not listened to this? Seriously? Okay, that's homework for you guys tonight. There are all sorts of people giving commencement speeches at the moment. So we've got J.K. Rowling. We have Elon Musk. You don't recognize these guys? Oh, maybe they're not coming up. We have Ellen, funniest woman on the planet. Robert De Niro. And, of course, Tyrion Lannister. So I realize that you are not at a graduation ceremony, but the truth is that round about this time of your lives, this is when old people will start giving you advice about your life, what to do, how to do it. And so already throughout the day, well, congratulations for making it through the day and to this point. Throughout the day, give yourself support. So throughout the day, you've already heard from a bunch of old peoples, no offense intended, a bunch of old people already telling you how to be a leader for when you get into the real world. And so this is the time for my turn. And the first question I have is, what exactly is the time? Now, this is the Pood Waddle World Clock. I wanted to do this live on a browser, but the last time I tried this and I switched to a browser to browse the internet, when I'm connected to a projector, everything went terrible. So I did some screenshots. This is just screenshots done just a couple of hours ago. Okay, so what is the time? The time is now, what, 4 something, right? On the 20th of June, Saturday, 2015. This is the time when the world population is over 7 billion. This year there have been nearly 66 million births and over 27 million deaths. So that's net positive quite a lot. And there are also about 370,000 people over the age of 100 at the moment. So we're living longer. Out of the 27 million people that died this year, nearly 3 million died by some sort of some sort of injury. And the biggest killer is road traffic accidents. Malaysia has one of the worst statistics for road traffic deaths per capita in the world. So remember that the next time you get into your car. Suicide is still a very big number, around 400,000 deaths this year. This is the time that we're at. About 6.5 million deaths by infectious diseases. The biggest killer by far is diarrheal diseases. Well over 2 billion people. Malaria, 124 million. Dengue, 4.5 million. And of course, these numbers are going up as the planet gets warmer. 14 million children died from measles. This is the time. In terms of energy, here are the figures for fossil fuel production. You can go to this website later. I mean, don't worry about the figures now. Just giving you a sense. The time before all known oil reserves run out is about 46 years. This is the dinosaur juice that took millions and millions of years to produce. We have squandered virtually all of it in the last couple of generations. So, how do you feel about that? CO2 emissions, this is the third figure from the top. We're nearly at 404 parts per million of CO2 equivalent. The last time the planet had this figure, there were no human beings on it. We are in uncharted territory. Deforestation this year is about 6 million hectares. Reforestation is about 3 million. Whoa. Taylor's is trying to get, okay. Thank you. I just got the Taylor's University guest policy. So deforestation about 6 million hectares. Reforestation about 3 million hectares, so there's net positive deforestation by nearly a half. This too is the time that we live in. Okay, why is this not working now? Right, here are some figures for the economy. Figures for the economy are basically dominated by debt. Global national debt is over 48 trillion US dollars. Global world product is 38 trillion. So where do you think that's heading? The average global debt per person is around 6,600 US dollars. This is the time that we're living in, if you see what I'm trying to get at, right? This is the world, this is the real world that you are about to embark upon. It's not all bad news. So this year alone, there have been about 685 million first kisses. I assume these are adult first kisses, you know, with tongue action. There have been 9 billion liters of beer produced this year, 12 billion liters of wine, and a massive 290 million servings of Coca-Cola. This is the time that we live in. Let me just give you some pictures that represent the same kind of information. This is the picture of New Delhi. I don't know if you can see that. There's just house after house after house. About 22 million people live there. These are the hills around Mexico City. You see these rolling hills, and it's just house after house after house. 24 million people live in that area. Here are some pictures of our industrial economy. I think they speak for themselves. So let's just roll through these, Albert. Deforestation is, of course, part of the industrial economy. And this is in Oregon, this is in Canada. It's happening all over the world. We hear a lot about what's happening in Indonesia and Malaysia, but we're all at it. Waste is obviously part of our industrial economy. You've seen these kind of pictures before, I am sure. This is a picture of a surfer in Indonesia. It's totally disgusting. This is the picture of a guy covering his nose because the stench from the river is just too horrible. There are certain behaviors that go with the industrial economy. This is the picture of LA. You can see there's a massive amount of energy that we consume. This is the picture of, anybody can guess? What? Black Friday, somebody said? Yeah, Black Friday shopping. This is the picture of the skies over London because now everyone can fly. It's true, isn't it? And then there are a whole bunch of results, right? So climate change, drought, forest fires that are just devastating $1 million houses in California, glaciers that are melting, that's our future drinking water, and there's death of various kinds. Here is an elephant killed for its tusks. This is a very famous picture. The next one, very famous picture of an albatross who died, and massive amounts of plastic in its stomach. And here is a picture of a polar bear who died of starvation. And of course, we shouldn't forget the first kisses. And may you have many first kisses. Unless, of course, you are sitting next to your girlfriend at the moment, in which case it's probably best to say, of course, darling, I'll never have a first kiss with anybody else ever, 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 ever. Actually, just forget I mentioned this whole thing. Let's move on. So anyway, welcome to your world. This is the time. This is the time when you start entering the real world, as no doubt people have been telling you and will be telling you over the next few years. Let me illustrate this to you in just yet another way. This is the time when we're living beyond the planet's limits. So if the green circle is what scientists tell us is safe, then we're currently well over the danger limit with climate change, nitrogen, and loss of biodiversity. Practically everything else is heading in the wrong direction. Scientists still haven't figured out, the top left, exactly where we are with chemical pollution and atmospheric aerosol landing, but you can imagine it's not a particularly good news. We're also overdrawn when it comes to natural capital. So in 1961, we were using 74% of the Earth's biocapacity. About 20 years later, it was 114%. And about 20 years after that, it was 156%. And we're still going in that direction. So what's it going to be in the next 20 years? And of course, if you're wondering how is it possible that we're able to use more than 100% of biocapacity when we have one planet, that's because although the Earth is a closed system, it is a system that has developed a huge amount of resources over the last few millennia. So I mentioned, the dinosaur juice earlier. But living beyond the annual carrying capacity of the planet is a question of intra-generational justice or intra-generational injustice. So, how do you feel about that? So at the beginning of the 21st century, we are living beyond the planetary limits. We are overdrawn with our natural capital bank account, and there is a level of toxicity not compatible with conditions conducive to life. This is the time. So this is the time when old people start giving you advice about your life, what to do, how to do it. This is the time when you actually listen to advice about how to go about living your life and are not doing a particularly good job at understanding the nature and scale of the problem and putting it right. So my question is, seriously, what are we doing? So if at the beginning of the 21st century this is where we're at, how did we get here? Is a relevant question. So one of the answers is mathematics. Oh, sorry. Okay. Problem is that the last couple of generations didn't really understand the implications of steady growth. So we're going to do some maths, if that's okay with you. Are there any math majors here? Nobody? Okay, we're going to be struggling then. Kidding, you can do this. So, if we have bacteria that doubles every minute, that is ordinary growth, right? That's steady growth. If we have bacteria that, if we have bacteria that doubles every minute in a jar, we have steady growth in a finite system, just like the planet that we live on is a finite system. So here's the maths. If we start with one bacteria at 11 a.m. and the jar is full at 12 noon, when was the jar half full? Okay, 11:35. What?
11:59.
Okay, so the jar was half full at 1 minute to 12. So if the jar was half full at 1 minute to 12, when did they realize they had a problem? When the jar's full, that's kind of too late, right? Okay, so thankfully we don't live in a jar. We live on a planet, right? A planet that has a little bit of leeway because we have a bunch of stored up capacity. But the mathematics of steady growth and the laws of thermodynamics are still relevant and are still important. So let me throw you another mental model. This is a tablecloth. Again, imagine this in your mind's eye. Imagine folding the tablecloth 4 times. Okay, so if you fold up a tablecloth 4 times, you get about a thickness of about 1 inch. Right? Okay, so now I want you to fold the tablecloth in your mind's eye. You can't do this physically, but fold the tablecloth another 16 times so that we've folded the tablecloth 20 times. Okay, so 4 folds are 1 inch, 20 folds are... Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. So if you got the answer, that was 32,000. Whoops, I did that twice. How do you go back? I've gone back too far. There's the tablecloth. Okay, so the answer is 32,786 inches. That's more than twice the height of the Twin Towers, just by folding the tablecloth 20 times. And if you fold it another 16 times, what's going on? Okay, if you fold it another 16 times, so you get to 38 folds, that will take you 32,132 miles past the planet. So, where are we? So here's the kicker, okay? The old people that I was talking about, or the last few generations, have been living on the flat part of the curve. Sorry, I should have said that, what we were looking at as an exponential curve. And when you're living at the flat part of the curve, tomorrow looks like yesterday, right? You see what I'm getting? But if you're living on the steep part of the curve, and I suggest that that's where you are, or rather think, no, go back out. Oh. Okay, this is tricky because we're working with a spreadsheet. Okay, so if you're living on the flat part of the curve, tomorrow looks like yesterday. If you're living on the steep part of the curve, tomorrow cannot possibly look like yesterday. Right? Because things are changing so fast. Okay. Right, we can move on. Okay, so here are a bunch of exponential curves. It doesn't really matter. Just look at the shape. So here we have population growth, GDP, FDI, atmospheric CO2, fertilizer consumption, water usage, paper usage, coastal zone structure development, telephone sales, McDonald's restaurants, etc., etc. They're all the same shape. So, now, let me ask you another question. Think about things in your life that you have no control over.
Aging.
Aging? That's true. I'm actually thinking of 3 particular things, so let's not workshop this because you don't have time. One of the things that you cannot control over is you can't choose your parents. Right? Now, these things affect your life. So, your ethnicity and your race, whether you have straight hair or curly hair, whether you have dark skin or light skin, whether you have cute sepet eyes or cute the other one, you have no control over this, but race and ethnicity is a factor that determines how your future develops. Think of another thing. The other thing is where you were born. If you were born in Los Angeles, your life will be very different to you being born in Myanmar, for example. Nothing you can control about that. But it has a big effect on your life. We live in a world that is not equitable. Geopolitical inequity is part of our reality. Okay? Now, as you can see from this slide, there is space for number 3. And before I do this, just for fun, I'd like to play you a video, right? A short video. There is sound of it, but the sound doesn't really matter. And I want you to just keep your eye on that. Okay? So, let's go. Keep an eye on that athlete.
Prendre le bâton pour la France sur les Russes
Ouais,
aussi.
Zikova qui vient attaquer la Russe. Là, ils ont fini fort, les Russes et les Ukrainiennes.
La France est 4e, il y a du trafic, elle a perdu un peu de temps, Floria, ça va être dur. Ça va être très dur parce que le podium est dessiné là-bas.
Ouais, c'est les 3 favoris devant.
Ouais, et il n'y aura pas de podium pour le 4x4 français parce que là on ne revient pas. Les Russes, l'Ukraine et la Grande-Bretagne. C'est vrai qu'il y a eu un problème dans le trafic et que Floria a perdu du temps. Et on va regarder la bagarre entre l'Ukraine et la Russie avec toujours la possibilité pour Adéoyer alors que Floria donne tout ce qu'elle a, mais malheureusement ce sera pas suffisant.
Ah, ça revient fort, elle revient fort.
Ouais,
Ouais,
mais...
la Britannique est en train de craquer.
Alors peut-être.
La Britannique est en train de craquer, Patrick.
Je pense que ça va être juste, mais elle va tout donner quand
Non,
même.
la Britannique a temporisé. Elle est en train de relancer.
Ouais, elle revient, elle va passer, elle va passer. Elle va passer les Russes.
C'est monstrueux.
C'est bon.
Quelle ligne droite. Mais il n'y a pas que la ligne droite, mais quel 400 mètres.
Elles sont championnes d'Europe.
C'est énorme.
J'ai jamais vu ça.
Non.
Patrick,
Je n'ai jamais vu ça.
c'est extraordinaire.
Mais
extraordinaire.
Mais c'est pas possible.
Elles sont extra. Merci pour Muriel. Merci
Mais
pour Muriel.
regarde.
énorme.
Je vous ai dit qu'elle se battrait pour Muriel.
Oh là là, Floria.
Extraordinaire.
Mais Floria.
Extraordinaire.
Okay, that's kind of cool, right? So, one of the things that I'm trying to illustrate here, and of course you can illustrate a whole bunch of different things with that extraordinary bit of 2 minutes. You can't choose your parents, you can't choose where you were born, but you also can't choose when you were born, right? And what I'm going to suggest to you is that for the first time in a long time, when you were born has become the most important factor that you have no control over in determining what your future will look like. It has overtaken ethnicity and race and gender. It has overtaken geography and geopolitical inequity. These things haven't disappeared. They're still a factor in your life, but not as much, I'm going to suggest to you, as the time that you happen to live in. Because you live on a different part of the curve. Does that make sense? So this makes you the most important generation in the history of the planet. Choose your superpower, because you are the most important generation in the history of the planet. So just take that in for a little while. Look around at yourselves. Okay? Right, now let me show you this in a slightly different way. Now this is some slides from a presentation I do about energy, but just forget about the technicalities. I just want to keep with this narrative, this story. So at the moment we consume about 18 terawatts of energy. You can see that on the top right. Most of it comes from fossil fuels. And you can see the 0 point something from renewable energies on the left of the slide. And if we need to get down to about 16 terawatts by the 2030s, something, from energy efficiency, and we need to replace fossil fuels with renewables, right? You know the story. Are you with me? Okay, but what does that actually mean? It means that if we want to create 2 terawatts of photovoltaic, we have to make and deploy 100 square meters of solar cells every second for the next 25 years. This is at 15% efficiency and well-sited sites. If we need 2 terawatts of new wind, that means we need to make 12 3-megawatt wind turbines in great locations every hour for the next 25 years. It means that if we need 2 terawatts of geothermal, we need to make and deploy 300 megawatt steam turbines every day for the next 25 years. It means that if we want 0.5 terawatts of biofuels, we need to make 1 Olympic-sized swimming pool of algae every second for the next 25 years. You are the most important generation in the history of mankind because there's no time for the next generation, your kids, to grow up and take care of these things. Full stop. End of. You are it. By virtue of when you were born. Tough. So, fill in the blanks. By observation at the beginning of the 20th century, we live in the most dangerous, maybe, important, somebody said, definitely, uncertain, it's got to be, right? But I think the best word is I envy you. Oh my God, because this is a great time to be alive. I wish I was 20 years younger. Anyway, there's certain things though that you have to know. So for example, you're going to need to know how much water it takes to make 1 cup of coffee. One cup of coffee, how much water? What? You're going to shout louder if you want me to hear. Okay, it takes 1 cup of water to make 1 cup of coffee, right? Okay, so this is obviously a trick question. That is not the right answer. Good try. So, how much water to make 1 cup of coffee? You have to factor in growing the coffee beans. Right? So, could it be 5 liters? Then I mean, put you out of misery, you don't know this, right? It actually takes 136 liters of water to make 1 cup of coffee. You know the cup of coffee that you make every day that you drink half of and the rest go into the sink? It's not that much water. Right? It takes 970 liters of water to make 1 t-shirt. They don't teach you this at Taylor's College, right? But these are the things that you need to know in order to be a conscious consumer. But there's more to it than that. It's not only that you have to know stuff about your consumption habits and the impact your consumption decisions make, you also have to work out why it is that we are continually persuaded to go out and spend money we don't have on things we don't really need, to create impressions that probably won't last, on people that we don't care about and who probably don't care about us. So it's not just about conscious consumption, it's about consumerism as a lifestyle. And of course, there's a whole bunch of other things that you simply have to learn and just get to know, right? You live in the age of the internet, it's all there. It's not on textbooks yet, because academia is always going to be a bit behind. That's just the nature of it. You just have to suck it up and do what you can. Right, so I can't go through all of those, but what I'm talking about is not like you've got to go and learn how to walk on the moon. It's not that kind of thing, you know? So if you're an astronaut, you have to do all this kind of weird training. You got to learn a whole bunch of stuff. This is not that kind of thing. What you really need to do is just think about what it means to be human, living where we live. That's it. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide. You can forget everything else. No, don't forget everything else, but this is quite important. So, what it means to be human is basically getting an understanding of the relationship between means and ends. Okay? So, ultimate means... Oh, right, okay, sorry, I forgot those arrows. Those are new in my slide. So you go from ultimate means to intermediate means to intermediate ends to ultimate ends. Right? Not brain science, not walking on the moon. So, ultimate means is what I call natural capital. Solar energy, the biosphere, the lithosphere, biogeochemical cycles. Without this stuff, nothing happens. The ultimate means to do everything. Ultimate ends, what I call well-being. So happiness, harmony, identity, self-respect, self-realization, community, enlightenment, peace, legacy. These are the things that I've put on there. You can put stuff on your list. But you need to go from ultimate means, the planet that sustains life, to ultimate ends, the meaning of life. This is why we're here, right? And in between, well, that's just detail. Intermediate means and intermediate ends. Some of you are taking notes. That's so sweet. Don't worry, you'll get the slides. Okay, so this is what we have to figure out. It's not that difficult. Okay? Now, I put these things in terms of 4 capitals. Natural capital, the stuff that the planet is made of. manufactured and human capital, and social capital. You notice that there is no financial capital. That is because financial capital is not capital. Are you all confused? Financial capital is not capital. Money, currency, is a counting system. It's a counter. Right? Let me tell you about capital. This is a tree. This is capital. A tree is part of natural capital because a tree happens to do a bunch of really useful stuff. It sequesters carbon, makes oxygen, makes complex sugars, creates microclimates, it distills water, fixes nitrogen, provides habitat, prevents soil erosion, and uses solar energy as fuel and self-replicates. These are really valuable things. We don't have to do anything to create value. This is what capital is. It is an intrinsic value. Right? Money, apart from the cost of the paper and the printing and the ink, money has no intrinsic value apart from what we happen to say it is. Money is just a counter. So, a tree is capital. It is not a resource that we have to use in order to make capital. Make and sell furniture. Make and sell paper. It is capital as it is. You can utilize it in order to make houses and furniture and really useful stuff. What you're doing is just changing the mode of capital. You're changing it from the ultimate means to an intermediate means, from natural capital to built capital, right? On the triangle. All right? So if we had, just imagine this, if we had a ministry of natural capital and not a ministry of natural resources, boom, we change a lot. The words that we use are important because they represent different concepts. Anyway, let's move on quickly. This is how it fits into an economic system. No time to talk about this now. It's here if you want to look at it later. So, I have been about rude people. I've been rude about old people, and I'm sorry. It's not really our fault. We really didn't realize what was happening. I don't mean to be rude, but actually, maybe I do a little bit. Because, as a rule of thumb, that's pretty much where we are at. People are trying to change, but the pace of change is nothing close to what it should be. It's nothing near. Sustainability is like teenage sex. Everybody says they're doing it. Most people aren't, and those that are probably doing it really badly. I don't remember teenage sex, it was just too long ago. But anyway, that is where we are. It is what it is. Okay? So, I'm going to finish now. 3 things. Number 1, understand your reality. Don't get freaked out about it. Just understand it. Number 2, know who you are. See yourself in your mind's eye. See each other as who you really are. What do you see? No more Chinese, Malay, Indian. No more Malaysian, Singaporean, American, French, whatever. You simply have no time for this shit anymore. Number 3, just learn this stuff. Okay? Not all the stuff is in textbooks and in academic institutions. I can recommend maybe 2 or 3 MBA courses that are worth going to in the world. The rest are pretty old-fashioned. good as Taylor's is, academia is always going to be behind. And you, because you're your generation, you cannot afford that. So learn this stuff. Learn this stuff not like an exam where you learn for the exam and you forget it a week later. Learn it so that it is a part of you. Because literally, it's time. So I'm that on Facebook, and I'm that on Twitter and Instagram. I'll see you online. Questions, comments, feedbacks, I'd like to hear from you. Thank you and good luck.
Anyone like to ask a question? Please step up to the mic. Introduce your name and program.
I'm Melanie from School of Engineering. Some of my teammates have actually listened to one of your talks on BFM about sustainability versus environmentalism, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So actually, I would like whether you can share a bit more. How do you feel like about applying sustainable means to our daily lives in that sense?
Yeah. Okay. So that was a long time ago, that talk. I haven't been on BFM for a while. But I think I was talking about the difference between sustainability and environmentalism. Right? And really the nub of the issue is this. Is how do we get out of the hole that we have dug ourselves in? That's the question. And I used to be an environmental activist, and I think literally we cannot legislate our way out of this hole. Right? That's what activism tries to do. Influences the political systems in order to write new laws. Now, that is not bad, that is good. We need laws to protect the environment, etc., etc. It's very hard to do because corporations have so much power. But even if we get our best guess, you know, how we can imagine doing it the best we possibly can, legislation will not get out of us out of this hole. This is a design problem, and we have to design a way out of this. So that's kind of what I was thinking. It's you just put on a different hat, and you spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8 a.m. doing different sorts of activities. Does that help? Is that what you're talking about? And of course, as an engineer, you're a big part of this. So let me just say something about engineers. Let me say something about buildings, for example. Okay? Just think about the way we do buildings historically. We basically make buildings that are less bad. Right? Less bad is defined first by the building codes of the city or the building codes of the country. And sometimes building codes get more stringent, so we build buildings less bad. Nowadays, we build buildings that are less bad through green building. You know the green building movement? And so you can have a bronze building, a silver building, a gold building, a platinum building. What the hell is this? This is building less bad. Why the hell are we designing less bad things when we should be designing good? Right? It's a different mindset. And there is a green building certification which does good. They got fed up with doing less bad. It's called the Living Building Challenge, if you want to look that up. It's a good template for how we need to design and redesign everything.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions?
In the meantime, please send your questions to Lucy. I'll leave
Sorry.
Oh, there's another question? All right.
So I want to ask, does what moderation come to play the role in sustainability?
Yeah, moderation in terms of consumption?
Consumption,
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we can't consuming the way. No, let me put this another way. You cannot be consuming the way your parents and your grandparents have done. It's just simply not possible. You can try, but you're not going to be able to get to the end of your life, in my opinion, and be able to sustain that. That is what sustainability means. It's unsustainable. But you need to be able to consume smarter, and things are getting much smarter. The internet and the technology and the fact that people can collaborate nowadays so much easier is a big game changer. But also you need to consider the part that consumption plays in your life in relation to ultimate means, intermediate ends, ultimate ends. And one of the problems that most people in my generation, and maybe the previous generation, my generation, I kind of mean that loosely, right? But people kind of before you, or you as you are now, not as you are going to be. One of the problems is that people misunderstand the difference between an intermediate end and an ultimate end. Do you remember those ultimate ends? Do you remember that list? A lot of people, they live their lives as if your ultimate end is money, cars, phones, whatever. So that's why so many people my age have a midlife crisis. Because they've been spending 20, 30 years doing one kind of thing, they get to the point and they're wondering, oh my God, what the fuck was that? You don't want to have a midlife crisis. It's not about age. It is about what you do with your time every week, every year, every day. There's no need for you to have a crisis. You don't want to be doing that. They're not fun. Hi.
My name is Mara. I'm from School of Communication. So my question is, I think that, in my personal opinion, the Generation Y, we're quite complacent in our lives, and we've always been told, like, regarding sustainability, that we should start from home and things like that. And according to tell this now, we keep coming up with solutions or suggestions that don't match the scale of the problem. So is there really a straightforward answer to what we should do right now?
I'm an old guy. I mean, this is your challenge. All right, you need to be asking yourselves. But I've been working on sustainability for 8, 9 years now, and the tools and the mindsets are getting much, much better. It was pretty crappy. I was really struggling to find good stuff out there, good models. 8 or 9 years ago, things are getting much better, and there are some really good companies. I have a list of companies that I called kick-ass companies. I have a list of cities that are kick-ass cities, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the models are out there. The big problem, I think, is not in knowing what to do. The big problem is understanding the things that are holding us back and the false narratives that are out there. Let me tell you, one of the biggest false narratives that is out there is this phrase, sustainable development. Have you heard of it? Yeah. Sustainable development, in my view, and it's just my view, but I'm right. Sustainable development is one of the worst phrases in the English language ever to be invented in the last 30 years. It is awful. Do you know why? because the sustainability part of that phrase cannot be an adjective. You're either sustainable or you're not. We either have developed countries or maldeveloped countries. We either have developing countries or maldeveloping countries. Right? Do you see what I mean? We're either sustainable or unsustainable. So you're a communication major, right? So the words that we use in order to describe our reality either fits in and feeds the myths or the reality. So anyway, that was just one example of the stuff. I think that's the difficult thing. There are enough smart people around here, Elon Musk, for example, that are working on specific design and engineering problems to get us out of this hole. But the big problem is the kind of mindset stuff that is keeping us back, I think.
Right.
You can keep answering questions, on Twitter, and I will respond, and hook up with me on Facebook and that kind of thing. Okay.
One last question, or
Sure.
you're
kidding. I can't read that.
This question I just sent it live by students. What's the main contribution that your company has done when sustainability of the environment and world in general? Of course, what inspired you to do this?
Okay. Well, the second one is much easier to answer. I mean, I think. The problem with the contribution that working as a sustainability consultant actually does is dependent on how many clients you get. And so I've worked with Puma. I haven't worked with that many clients. I engage with a lot of people, and then it's just very hard to get people to do what I'd like them to do. A lot of my clients, I'll tell you the truth, a lot of my clients, the fashion is to get a kind of sustainability report. They see sustainability or corporate social responsibility as an external communication drive. So I've done award-winning sustainability reports for companies. But I go to the company, I do my work, I leave the company, and the company is pretty much exactly the same as before I went there. Very little transformation progress at all. So I don't know what kind of impact. But I'm still working. I've still got maybe another 20, 30 years to work on it. What inspired me? Is that the question? I really can't read that.
Was what inspired you to do?
Okay. I've done lots of different things in my life, but in 2004, end of 2004, the tsunami happened, and I was in Poland, working in Poland at the time. I got a call from my sister's ex-boss, Pan Srirazadi. He was the UN guy. He wanted to start an organization post-tsunami. I came back to run that organization. Force of Nature, I guess you're too young to remember that. Do you remember? Anyway, so we worked in the natural disaster recovery area, and what I noticed with that piece of work, in that area of work, was that most organizations and people worked in the emergency phase. So as soon as a natural disaster happened, hundreds and hundreds of people going there, Mercy Malaysia, Red Cross, during the emergency period, because that's where the money is, that's where the urgency is, that's when the television cameras are, and then they leave. And very often, the surviving communities they never get back on their feet because everybody leaves. Right? So if you look at Haiti, I used to use Bam, the earthquake in Bam in Iran as an example. There's still unfinished buildings in Bam, and Bam earthquake happened decades ago. So I was trying to work out how we make a contribution to the long-term recovery of vulnerable communities. Communities vulnerable to natural disasters. The vulnerable factors are what? 1, poverty. 2, coastal migration. 3, climate change. So in order to get my mission done in that NGO, I had to be able to answer those 3 things. That's when I got interested in climate change, and sustainability is a movement from that. I think it is the most exciting, interesting thing ever on the planet. I've done lots of study, but I get to study everything in order to try and fix everything. And that's your job now. Thank you.